here are the things that are affecting us this week in backyard farming. And it's not just this week, it's been going on for a while, but here's my take on a couple of these things. So, Tractor Supply feed. I imagine a lot of people are familiar with what's been going on with this supposed controversy with Tractor Supply feed. And a lot of people are claiming that there's some kind of a conspiracy to impact the industry so that they can control the pricing and that sort of thing. Honestly, I don't think that that's what's happening. And I'll tell you why. Let me just read you a list. Hang in there with me, but I really want to drive this point home, okay? Alphabet laid off 12,000 people, Amazon 18,000, IBM 3,900, Microsoft 10,000, Royal Philips 3,000, Salesforce 8,000, SAP 3,000, BNY Mellon 1,500, Goldman Sachs 3,200, PayPal 2,000, Carvana 4,000, and Hasbro 1,000, and Hasbro 1,000. And that's just some of them. I just kind of cherry picked the list. Those are the companies that have laid off workers in the past month or so. Why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that because cost of business is getting more expensive. All of the stuff that we know when we go to the grocery store or when we are paying extra transportation costs for goods or for fuel, well, there's a trickle-down effect that hits everybody. And so in a kind of society that we have structured the way that we do, those prices get passed on to somebody. Someone has to pay for the increased cost. And so getting back to the Tractor Supply feed issue, people are claiming, that they're intentionally doing something so as to manipulate either the industry or to negatively affect the poultry industry. I don't believe it. I think it's just everybody is suffering high prices and fuel costs and food costs. And a lot of it, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, connects to the events that are happening in Russia and Ukraine, because those two countries are responsible for a huge portion of the world's food and fuel supply. And so there is no way that it can't affect us. And so what I think is happening is that there is possibly some cutting that's happening in the recipe of the lower grade Tractor Supply feeds. And when you cut, probably the most expensive thing that goes into a feed is protein. And so when you cut that, what's the first thing that happens when you have laying chickens and you cut protein? They stop laying. And so that's what I think is happening at the top level of this so-called controversy. Is it's just they're getting pinched because fuel costs and transportation costs and bulk material costs have gone up. And so they're trying to do the thing that we see everyone else doing, which is shrinkflation. The packages are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so I don't think that feed companies could get away with all of a sudden, their bags weigh, 39 pounds or 29 pounds or something like that. I think that the people would just freak out too much. And so instead, I think they're cutting either the quality or the amount of the various ingredients that make up their feed. So that's the first part. The other part that I think has been happening is there's this huge influx of backyard farmers that weren't around a year or two ago. And with that comes inexperience. And when you have an inexperienced person keeping chickens, they may not realize some of the things that affect the productivity of their chickens. And and on top of that, we've been having really unusually cold weather. And so you have an inexperienced person raising chickens that is experiencing cold weather in a place that doesn't normally experience cold weather, like in the south of the United States. And their chickens stop laying. This is not rocket science, people. It's inexperience and inflation. Honestly, I think that's what the case is. Let me see, what else? All right, I feel like that covers Tractor Supply. The other issue that we all know about if we're backyard farming or if we've ever seen a TV or gone to the grocery store is the situation with eggs. And again, I'm just not a conspiracy person. And I'll tell you why I'm not a conspiracy person. It's just too hard to get people to agree on anything. It's hard to get neighbors in a neighborhood to agree on anything. So how do you get corporations made up of thousands of people or countries to, conspire to pull one over on the world? It's just not very likely to me. I know that probably goes against what a lot of people think, but it's so difficult to get people to agree on anything that to get them to agree on one more conspiracy I don't know. It just kind of seems against human nature to me. So as far as the egg supply issue goes, I think some of the obvious low-hanging fruit is transportation costs, feed costs are being passed down. Add on top of that the avian flu outbreak, which is reducing populations and making health departments concerned, and maybe they're overreacting to how aggressive they are. I mean, I don't know. This does seem like a pretty bad outbreak. You'd be surprised how many people are contacting me because they lost their flock to avian flu. So, yeah, it's a real thing, and it is reducing the population. When you have a reduced population of chickens, you're going to have reduced eggs, all that kind of stuff. And as a result of this increased... Oh, yeah, that was the other thing. Another thing that's been happening a lot in the past 2-3 years is that there are a lot of new kitchen-oriented people that are baking that have never baked before or that are baking more frequently because they really got into it because of the pandemic. And a lot of eggs are used in that. And so I suspect that there are a lot of more people participating in baking because of that whole move in culture that we experienced. And so I think that that's also putting pressure on the supply because there's more people buying, and when there's more people buying, prices go up. So there you go. That's my take on those two big issues. No conspiracies needed. Everything is expensive and messed up right now. I hear you on that, man. And I hate to say it, Jake, but I think it's going to get a lot worse. It's funny. I say to my wife, on a regular basis, I wake up in the morning and look at the news, kind of, look at Wall Street and stuff like that. And I'm blown away that it's still functioning because there's no good reason why Wall Street should be functioning at all. It's just kind of like inertia grinding ahead. And so it's like, okay, whatever. I'm glad that it is still functioning because it means that we still have food supply and fuel supply and all that kind of stuff. Another thing that's probably going to be happening as a result of these pressures on the poultry industry, which is fuel and food and increased demand for their product, I think that we're going to see a lot more pressure on turkey and chicken, duck-related products, eggs and meat. It's just an obvious thing because this bird flu is affecting all birds, wild and domestic. It knows no boundaries when it comes to birds. Okay, so there you go. Those are the two events that I think are most relevant. As far as what's going on here at Wineberry Hill, the couple things that I was going to mention, we're about to have a really bad cold snap this week, this coming weekend. In fact, it's going to be in the negative digits. And so I know that that's the case in quite a bit of the country, that there's going to be this extended cold snap. So I would really encourage everyone to double check their firewood supply. I'm actually going to insulate the chicken coop today. I'm not going to change much about the coop other than that it might be slightly capable of holding a little bit more heat because we've only had it down into the teens up until now where I live in New England. And so it's going to be, in the sub-zero temperatures. And so I thought, all right, I'll go ahead and insulate the walls. Nothing too fancy. Right now it's just literally the board facing the outside. I mean, there's no insulation on any of the walls, so it can't hurt to insulate the walls in my chicken coop. So I'm going to do that this week. I mentioned the pill bug infestation of 2023, so I'm going to be replanting a lot of my green beans and getting a lot of diatomaceous earth in the locations that they'll be sprouting up to combat the pill bugs. So that's one of the things I'm going to be working on. Let's see here. I ordered 3 raised beds, those metallic, they're metal raised beds by Vajiga. I got 2 6.5 foot and 1 8 foot for here by the greenhouse. And so I'm going to be, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be filling those up with soil. Oh, you're in Canada. Wow. Man. Well, I suspect you're going to get it even colder. I've been watching Sean, why can't I think of Sean's last name? You know who I'm talking about. He has a channel, My Self-Sufficiency, building the cabin up there in Canada. I think about him a lot because everything that I'm doing, it's, winter is cold. Everything he's doing, it's like cold turned up to 11. So, whew. You Canadians, you're made out of special stuff. So the raised beds, that's what I'm going to be working on this week and next week to fill those up. I'm probably going to do a variation of hugelkultur on those, as well as I'm actually thinking about, I have about like partially finished compost. I run all my compost, I pre-shred it through a chipper and a shredder before I put it into the compost bin, and so it's kind of like this in-between substance. I'm thinking about using it as filler for my beds, so maybe I should be making a video about that as well. And as I said, firewood. I need to buck and cut and split a whole bunch of firewood because I'm actually down pretty far on my firewood supply. Okay, there we go. That's all I have for this week in backyard farming. But feel free to leave a comment or contact me on Instagram or send me an email as far as content that you would like me to cover in next week's edition of This Week in Backyard Farming. And thank you for the people that were on the live stream, especially Jake. It's nice to know that there's a pulse out there, so I appreciate it.